Some people are just idea people, they can't execute. That's why you need a finisher, someone who can actually build the dream. The words echoed in the cavernous conference hall, magnified by a dozen speakers. On stage, Victor was a sharp silhouette against the blinding white of the projector screen, his hands gesturing with practiced ease. The audience, a sea of tech's brightest minds, nodded along, captivated. I stayed in my seat at the back, the fabric of the chair rough against my skin, and felt nothing at all. He held up his phone, displaying the app I had coded line by line, and smiled. When the applause finally died down and he found me near the exit, flush with adrenaline, he had the gall to look concerned. "Simone, are you okay? You look pale." "I have the build logs," I said. We met at a late-night hackathon 5 years ago, two people fueled by lukewarm coffee and a shared obsession with Dieter Ram's design principles. Victor had the charisma, the vision. He could talk a venture capitalist into funding a paper bag. I had the skill. I could build the beautiful, impossible things he described. Our first project was a simple scheduling widget, coded over a single weekend. Remember the thrill of 3 a.m., the screen glowing in the dark, the quiet click of my keyboard as the final line of code compiled without a single error. That was the good memory. The first red flag came a week later. I overheard him pitching the widget to a potential client, casually referring to it as something he threw together. When I asked him about it, he just laughed, a bright, disarming sound. "A slip of the tongue," he said, clapping me on the shoulder. "We're a team, what's mine is yours." I believed him. We called our big idea project Umbra. It was a revolutionary user interface, intuitive and clean, and it consumed my life for 18 months. We worked out of Foundry, a co-working space that smelled of burnt coffee and ambition. Those early days were a blur of warm memories. Celebrating our first round of seed funding, $50,000, with overpriced ramen at that little place on Grove Street. The afternoon Victor surprised me with a Keychron Q1 mechanical keyboard, its heavy aluminum base cool to the touch. "Your hands are our most valuable asset," he'd said. "We need to protect them." Slowly, the cracks began to show. The balance shifted. I was the one pulling the all-nighters, my GitHub commit log a relentless green river of activity. Victor was handling the business side, which seemed to consist of endless lunches and networking events. He'd breeze into the office around noon, talking about a great new contact he'd made, while I was debugging a memory leak I'd been wrestling with since dawn. The pronoun was always we. We're working so hard. We're so close to a breakthrough. But I was the only one who looked exhausted. The discovery came by accident. A misdirected email, meant for his personal account. It was an invoice from a freelance developer in Estonia for $5,000. The line item read, "Reskinning and asset finalization for Sola's UI." I opened the attached zip file. It was my work. Every icon, every transition, every meticulously crafted line of code, but subtly altered. The hex codes of the colors were shifted by a single digit. My nearly invisible digital watermarks had been scrubbed clean. It wasn't just my partner. He was my client, paying someone else to erase me from my own creation. That night, I didn't sleep. The next morning, I called my friend Zoe, a data security analyst. For the next 6 weeks, I led a double life. By day, I was the loyal coder, nodding along to Victor's motivational speeches. By night, Zoe and I were digital archaeologists, unearthing the truth. We backed up the entire server history to an encrypted drive. We documented every login from my IP address, every single commit I had made. Found his Slack DMs to a friend, where he'd bragged about his code monkey who was almost done building his golden goose. The betrayal wasn't a single act, it was a sprawling, calculated campaign. The breaking point was the Innovate Forward Design Conference. Victor was the keynote speaker. Our early investor, Sarah, was in the front row, next to Kenji Tanaka, a journalist from a major tech publication. I was there because I still believed, on some foolish level, that he would do the right thing. That he would stand on that stage and say my name. Instead, he presented Project Umbra as Project Sola's, his solo masterpiece. Then came the line that froze the blood in my veins. Some people are just idea people, they can't execute. That's why you need a finisher, someone who can actually build the dream. My old partner was brilliant, but just couldn't get it over the finish line. The world went quiet. The applause sounded like static. It was not just stealing my work. He was rewriting our history, painting me as a failure. In that moment of utter humiliation, my mind became perfectly, terrifyingly clear. I saw the entire path forward, and I noticed one tiny, overlooked detail. The sound. The unique, resonant clack of the expensive mechanical keyboard he had bought for me. The one I had used to write every single line of his dream. My lawyer, Ms. Davies, was a woman who spoke in short, precise sentences and charged accordingly. We decided against a public lawsuit. Too slow, too messy. We filed for binding arbitration. The fee was $18,000, almost all of my savings. It felt like placing the biggest bet of my life. Zoe helped me compile the evidence into an unassailable digital dossier. The list of exhibits was beautiful in its cold brutality. 1. My complete, time-stamped GitHub commit history for Project Umbra, showing 4,312 distinct commits from my account. Server access logs showing my IP address as the sole source of all core development files for over a year. 3. The invoice from the Estonian freelancer. 4. Victor's Slack messages. And 5. The ironic masterpiece, hundreds of hours of audio recordings from my work sessions. I had started recording them to dictate notes, but I kept doing it out of habit. Every recording captured the unmistakable sound profile of the Keychron Q1. Ms. Davies' strategy was surgical. Her initial discovery request focused only on financial discrepancies, a decoy to make Victor think my case was weak, that this was just a squabble over money. He walked into the arbitration hearing radiating confidence, ready to argue profit percentages. The arbitration office was a minimalist space of glass and gray steel. Just me, Ms. Davies, Victor, his lawyer, and the arbitrator, a retired judge named Peterson. I'm here to establish the sole authorship of Project Umbra, Ms. Davies began, her voice calm and even. Victor scoffed. His lawyer launched into a passionate defense of Victor's singular vision, his tireless work in creating Project Solas. For a moment, Victor looked like he believed it himself. Then Ms. Davies began. First, the commit logs, the server data, the Slack messages. Victor's face tightened, his bravado shrinking into a tight knot of confusion. He stammered that I was a contractor, that the ideas were his, that the code was merely an execution of his vision. Ms. Davies paused, letting the silence hang in the air. Then she turned to Victor. You gifted my client a Keychron Q1 keyboard, didn't you? A thoughtful gesture to protect your most valuable asset. She clicked a file on her laptop. The sound filled the room, a crisp, rhythmic clacking. My keyboard. She played the audio while projecting a screen recording of the app's code being written, line by line, in real time. Sound of the keys matched the appearance of the characters on the screen, a perfect, damning synchronization. For 417 hours of documented work, Victor went the color of ash. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. The entire foundation of his story, his solo genius, had evaporated into the sound of my fingers on a keyboard he had paid for. The arbitrator looked from the screen to Victor's pale face. Ms. Davies rested her case. Looked across the table at the man who had been my friend. You were right, I said softly. You do need a finisher. The arbitrator's judgment was delivered in less than 24 hours. I was granted 100% ownership of the intellectual property. The damages awarded were $125,000. The story leaked, just as Ms. Davies predicted it would. Kenji Tanaka's article on TechCrunch was titled Heard Not Seen, the ghost coder behind Project Solas. Fallout for Victor was swift and total. His investors pulled out. The Foundry terminated his membership. His social media went dark. I saw him once about 6 months later, working at a Genius bar. He was explaining a software update to an impatient customer, his face lit by the cold blue light of someone else's broken screen. I relaunched the project under its original name, Umbra. I secured new funding, this time on my own terms, with Sarah as my lead investor. I hired a small, brilliant team. We all get credit. My new apartment has a big window that lets in the morning sun, and the only sound I hear is the quiet hum of my own computer. The feeling isn't triumph, not really, it's peace. The earned calm that comes after a storm. Last week, Sarah asked me what the secret to our new success was. I thought for a moment, then smiled. It's simple. We have a team of finishers. The dream was always mine to build.